7 Frightening Sins of BMW. Today you will find out, is it true that BMW bribes politicians? How many people have suffered because of bad car assembly? Why your BMW can explode at any moment? And most importantly, did BMW collaborate with the Nazis? Sin 1. The politician bribery scandal. In 2007, BMW found itself at the center of one of the biggest scandals in its history, involving the bribery of European politicians to obtain favorable tax and regulatory terms. The company used its considerable financial and resource capabilities to secure favorable decisions from government officials, which caused a storm of outrage and led to numerous investigations. A particularly high-profile case was in Italy, where several high-ranking officials were found to have received large bribes from BMW. These bribes included expensive gifts, luxury vacations, and even direct money transfers to offshore accounts. In return, the officials gave BMW significant tax breaks, simplified conditions for building new factories, and relaxed environmental regulations. In effect, the company was buying itself privileges that allowed it to save millions of euros and circumvent strict regulations. An investigation launched in 2008 uncovered numerous cases of corruption and collusion. The investigation uncovered more and more details of the corruption schemes. Journalists and investigators discovered that bribed officials not only turned a blind eye to violations, but also actively assisted BMW in circumventing legal requirements. As a result of the scandal, several officials were arrested and sentenced to prison terms. Some of them received impressive prison sentences, a telling measure in the fight against corruption. For BMW, the scandal was a huge blow to its reputation. The company had to pay multi-million-dollar fines, as well as implement strict internal controls to prevent similar cases from happening again in the future. A brand that was associated with quality and innovation was caught up in foul play, undermining consumer confidence. Phrases like bought solutions and corruption schemes were frequently mentioned in the press, causing public discontent. Consumers began to question the company's ethics and its ability to conduct honest business. Numerous articles and reports about the scandal made the front pages of newspapers and news programs, reinforcing the negative perception of the brand. However, BMW did not immediately admit guilt. For months after the initial allegations, the company denied any involvement in corruption, saying that all actions were within the law. It was only under public pressure and after an independent investigation that the company admitted to the corruption and began the process of cleaning up its reputation. BMW had to conduct a large-scale internal audit, fire several top managers, and introduce new, stricter standards of corporate ethics and compliance. The process of rebuilding its reputation was long and complex. BMW actively cooperated with the authorities, participated in public anti-corruption initiatives, and conducted campaigns aimed at restoring consumer confidence. Despite all efforts, the scandal left a deep mark on the company's history and reminded everyone that even the most respected brands can be involved in serious wrongdoing. Sin 2. The Takata airbag scandal. BMW was one of the companies whose cars were equipped with defective Takata airbags. These airbags could explode and eject metal shards, resulting in several fatalities. Can you imagine? You're driving your luxury BMW, enjoying the ride, and then bam! The airbag decides to play Russian roulette. And instead of saving you, it kills you with shards of metal. It caused the biggest recall in history and numerous lawsuits. In 2014, after a BMW 3 Series driver died due to an exploding airbag, the company had to admit that the problem was much bigger than they thought. By 2016, the number of deaths had risen to 14, and the number of people injured to several hundred. Each new death and injury increased the number of lawsuits and proceedings. The defect was part of a global crisis involving Takata airbags that affected tens of millions of cars around the world. For BMW, this meant not only the need to urgently recall thousands of vehicles, but also to engage in huge lawsuits and pay substantial compensation to those affected. The company was forced to conduct large-scale inspections and replacements of the airbags in its cars. The Takata airbag problem has become a symbol of how serious defects can hide in the most unexpected places, threatening the lives of drivers and passengers. The case triggered the largest recall in the history of the auto industry and became the subject of numerous news stories and articles, causing public outrage and fear. For BMW, it meant serious reputational losses. Car owners began to doubt the safety of their cars, despite the high quality and reliability with which the brand had always been associated. The company came under pressure not only from consumers, but also from regulators who demanded an immediate solution to the problem. Regaining consumer confidence took a huge effort. BMW not only had to address the ongoing problems with the defective airbags, but also had to work on improving all aspects of safety of its cars. The company introduced stricter quality control control standards and began actively informing consumers about the fixes. Sin 3. The diesel engine scandal. You thought only Volkswagen could play foul? Turns out BMW likes to manipulate data too. But who would have thought it would lead to such serious consequences? In 2018, it was revealed that BMW had been using special software for several years to understate the emissions figures of its diesel cars. The program, embedded in the engine management system, was configured to show significantly lower emissions on tests than in real-world driving conditions. This manipulation allowed BMW to promote its diesel cars as clean and fuel-efficient, misleading millions of consumers and regulators around the world. When this fact became public knowledge, a huge scandal erupted. As a result of investigations and lawsuits, the company was fined hundreds of millions of euros. However, financial losses were only the tip of the iceberg. Reputational losses turned out to be much more serious and long-term. Trust in a brand that had long been associated with quality, reliability, and innovation was severely undermined. Consumers who believed in BMW's clean diesels were deceived. Car owners who bought cars with the idea of protecting the environment and saving fuel suddenly found out that their cars were emitting several times more pollutants into the atmosphere than claimed. This caused a wave of outrage and led to massive lawsuits from car owners who demanded compensation for the deception. The situation was aggravated by the fact that the scandal affected not only private car owners, but also companies that used BMW diesel cars in their fleet. Many corporate customers began to renegotiate their contracts and refused to cooperate with BMW, preferring manufacturers with more transparent and honest policies. In addition, the scandal attracted the attention of governments and environmental organizations, which began to demand stricter regulations and standards for all automobile manufacturers. This meant additional costs for BMW to modernize its production lines and update software to meet the new requirements. As a result, the company found itself in the midst of a huge scandal that undermined the brand's credibility for many years. Regaining that lost trust required significant effort and investment in the development of new, truly environmentally friendly technologies. BMW had to rethink its strategy and emphasize the development of electric vehicles and hybrid technologies in order to restore its reputation and meet new, more stringent standards. Sin 4. Fatal accidents due to defects. Let's move on to the modern era. Fatal accidents due to defects is a topic that BMW seems to have mastered to a brilliant degree as well. In the 2010s, several BMW models caused tragic accidents. Consider the case of the driver's brakes failing at speed. The car slammed into a wall at full speed and the driver died instantly. The company, of course, quickly recalled those models, but who will give that person's life back? And what about the defective steering mechanisms that also caused accidents? Each time, BMW has claimed that these are isolated incidents, but the number of these isolated cases is highly questionable. In one case in 2012, a driver in a BMW X5 suddenly lost control due to steering failure. The car crashed into a guardrail at over 60 miles per hour, resulting in the instant death of the driver and severe injuries to the passengers. This incident caused a huge outcry and many lawsuits against the company. As a result of these incidents, BMW has been forced to conduct extensive recalls of vehicles and conduct thorough inspections of its models. However, the damage had already been done. The company's reputation was severely damaged, and many consumers began to question the safety of their cars. BMW owners began to fear for their lives and the lives of their loved ones, which dealt a serious blow to the brand's image. Each new accident involving defective BMW vehicles became the subject of high-profile news stories, drawing public attention and increasing pressure on the company. In an attempt to restore trust, BMW was forced to introduce new, stricter quality and safety standards. The company also began to actively cooperate with independent experts and regulators to ensure that such incidents would not happen again. Sin 5. Brake system problems and accidents. In 2017, BMW faced massive vehicle recalls due to serious defects in the braking system that led to accidents with severe consequences. In one such incident, a defective brake system led to a crash that killed a driver and passenger. Brakes that don't brake are a real nightmare, especially when you're rushing at high speeds. Once again, BMW was at the center of a scandal due to safety issues. A particularly tragic case was when a 2017 BMW 5 Series, traveling at high speed, crashed into a group of pedestrians due to a brake system failure. This accident incident resulted in the death of 3 people, including a child. This incident sparked a huge wave of protest and demands for an immediate recall of all cars with similar systems. The scandal led to BMW having to announce a massive recall of cars and carry out costly inspections and repairs. The company was forced to recognize the problem and take emergency measures to fix the defect. BMW's reputation suffered once again as consumers began to doubt the safety and reliability of the brand's cars. In addition to the financial costs of repairs and compensation to those affected, the company suffered serious reputational losses. Safety issues became a priority, and BMW had to work to regain the trust of its customers. Sin 6. Incident of battery explosion in the i8. In 2019, several incidents involving battery fires in the BMW Y8 model resulted in serious injuries and 1 fatality. The company was forced to conduct a massive recall and investigation. What could be better than an electric car that prides itself on being environmentally friendly? How about the kind of electric car that explodes under your seat? Thank you, BMW, for the unexpected fireworks. In one incident in 2019, the driver of a BMW Y8 was driving on a country highway when he suddenly heard a loud explosion. A few seconds later, the car burst into flames and the driver barely made it out in time. Unfortunately, his passenger did not survive. The incident sparked a storm of outrage and demands for an independent investigation. BMW was forced to recall all i8 cars and launch a major investigation into the cause of the battery fire. The situation caused serious reputational losses for the company, which positioned its electric cars as safe and environmentally friendly. Consumers began to doubt the reliability and safety of BMW electric cars. This incident drew the attention of not only car owners, but also the public, causing a wave of criticism against the company. BMW had to work on fixing the problems and conducting thorough inspections in production to avoid similar situations in the future. Regaining consumer confidence required considerable effort and investment in improving safety technology. Sin 7. Collaboration with the Nazis. Welcome to a dark corner of BMW's history, where the company has not just skeletons in its closet, but entire skeleton closets. Let's start with the darkest chapter: forced labor and concentration camps during World War II. Yes, you heard right. While the world was fighting for freedom, BMW was actively cooperating with the Nazi regime, producing aircraft engines for the Luftwaffe. But the worst part was the use of concentration camp prisoners, including women and children, to work in the factories. These people lived in horrible conditions, with little or no food or medical care. Many of them died from exhaustion and abuse. During the war, BMW actively employed the labor of over 50,000 people, including prisoners from concentration camps. These men worked under incredibly harsh conditions, often under threat of death. Not surprisingly, many of them did not live to see the end of the war. In the BMW factories near the concentration camps, prisoners were forced to work 12, 16 hours a day without proper rest or food. The working conditions were horrendous. They worked under the constant supervision of guards and were subjected to cruel treatment and humiliation. Medical care was virtually non-existent, and many workers died from disease, exhaustion, and injuries sustained on the job. After the war ended, these horrifying facts became public knowledge. Allied investigations confirmed that BMW was not just using forced labor, but was making significant profits by contributing to Nazi Germany's war effort. The company was virtually unpunished for its actions, which is still resented and criticized to this day. Despite this, BMW has made efforts in recent years to acknowledge its responsibility for these crimes. The company has initiated programs to compensate victims and their families, and is also actively involved in projects aimed at preserving the memory of Nazi victims and preventing the recurrence of such tragedies. This dark page in BMW's history is a reminder that even the most respected and successful companies can have a terrible past. It is important to remember and recognize these facts to prevent them from happening again in the future.